Aaron Rodgers says they've had some difficult turnarounds this year, but he joked today in the locker room saying that they're the toughest on old guys like himself. Fans I spoke with today say they're hopeful for the Packers' new hire, but only time will tell if he can get the job done. Brewers fans all over Northeast Wisconsin were excited to see their team clinch the NL Central. Today's game marks the 198th time the Packers have played the Bears. This rivalry is a tale as old as time, which makes winning so sweet for some and losing so painful for others. The Packers were a little beat up coming out of Week 6, but it seems that bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Coach McCarthy says that he's confident his team will come out strong against the 7-0 Rams on Sunday. That's a wrap for the Chicago Cubs regular season, ending 92-70. Now it's time for some much-needed R&R before they head off to Washington for the playoffs to face the Nationals. This is the studio where Majera broke barriers in her career, becoming the first woman ever hired to report sports for Chicago's very own WGN News. Today's game marks the 198th time the Packers have played the Bears. This rivalry is a tale as old as time, which makes winning so sweet for some and losing so painful for others. We talked with fans in Green Bay on both sides of the fence to get their reaction. Aaron Rodgers has crushed the hopes and dreams of Bears fans and fulfilled them for Packers fans for years. But today, the Bears took the W at Soldier Field, clinching the NFC North and winning their first division title since 2010. Bears fans say they're elated, while Packers fans say they're disappointed.
It always stings to lose to the Bears. We were fairly confident coming in. We still had playoff hopes, but there wasn't much light at the end of the tunnel, but there was still some, so it hurts, yeah.
I felt like I waited forever for that. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers had broken my heart for a long time. We finally got him.
This breaks the Green and Gold's 8-game winning streak at Soldier Field. Packers fans tell us they're hopeful for a different outcome next season. One thing Packers and Bears fans said they could agree on was that they have the oldest and best rivalry in the NFL. Keeping you connected, Jennifer Nazha, NBC 26. Thursday night's game will be the last of 3 games the Packers will have played in a 12-day span. But of course, the Seahawks are also facing a quick turnaround, coming off a road game. The Packers say they realize this is a challenge every team faces.
Well, it's hardest for the players. I mean, there's no make no bones about it. This is difficult for all the players in the league to come off of a Sunday game and play Thursday night.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's not great. But you got to do it.
It does suck going out there for Thursday all the way on the other coast. I'd like to play a lot closer, but it is what it is. It's more mental. These Thursdays, you don't get much practice time, and just go get it.
Aaron Rodgers says they've had some difficult turnarounds this year, but he joked today in the locker room saying that they're the toughest on old guys like himself. Keeping you connected, Jennifer Nazha, NBC 26. Packers fans we spoke with today say they're not happy about what they saw from the defense in yesterday's game. But the controversial call on Clay Matthews is what really made them upset. Some blame the league, while others say rules are rules.
Well, number one, I didn't think any of them were penalties. Number two, Mr. Matthews has got to learn a way to do it the correct way so he doesn't have the penalties called against him.
Should have been a good tackle. Just if they don't want him to touch him anymore, they might as well just put flags on them so they pull off the flag and be done with it.
The quarterbacks have got to be tough. They've got to stand in the pocket. They've got to take some sacks. It's just part of the game.
Overall, fans tell us they want the roughing the passer calls to be more clear and consistent. Although many fans are mad about the penalty against Matthews and the Packers' performance yesterday, they say it's still early on in the season and are hopeful the Packers will turn it around. Keeping you connected, Jennifer Nazha, NBC 26. Brewers fans all over Northeast Wisconsin were excited to see their team clinch the NL Central. Some even made time in the middle of their day to watch it happen.
Well, I took the afternoon off from work just to see this, so I'm pretty excited about it. I'm so stoked that the Brewers are in first.
And what fans say made winning the title even better.
Divisional champs, the sweetest thing is we're doing it against the Cubs.
Now that fans of the Brew Crew have seen one champagne shower, they're thirsty for more and looking to go all the way.
World Series, it's the best we can do. It's win or go home at this point.
Fans are now checking out ticket prices to see the Brewers in postseason action on Thursday. Keeping you connected, Jennifer Nazha, NBC 26. The Packers' next game marks their second Thursday night game ever in Seattle. Although the quick turnaround and travel will be a challenge, the Packers also say that the notoriously loud atmosphere at CenturyLink Field makes it a difficult place for any team to play in.
Their stereo system's the best in the league. I mean, you can see that in pregame. I mean, it's very clear. But no, it's they got great fans and the noise and definitely fits their style of play too.
Once you played there before, you understand that the environment is going to be hostile. It's always a great place to play, and we're just trying to go in and get another win.
All this talk about their stadium and all this talk about prior matchups is just for the fans and just for the media. It makes it for a good storyline, but I promise you, it's just another game, and hopefully a good one. So we'll see come Thursday.
Green Bay has won 3 straight regular season games over Seattle, but all of them were here at Lambeau. So this is another chance for them to finally pick up a win on the road, which they have yet to do this season. Keeping you connected, Jennifer Nazha, NBC 26.
Just ahead of Cubs baseball on WGN, Lauren Majera's back.
Sports reporter and anchor Lauren Majera is a familiar face on WGN TV. However, this was not always the case. Now, viewers take female sports journalists for granted, but the road to success is far from easy. Majera knows this all too well.
Being a female in sports, there's this stigma that people are going to be judging you way more harshly than they would if you were a man.
This kind of sexism was on display just months ago when Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton made a dismissive remark to the Charlotte Observer female sports writer Jordan Rodriguez. She asked a question about wide receiver routes, to which Newton replied,
"It's funny to hear a female talk about routes, it's funny."
What is not funny is that women in sports, like Majera, deal with similar situations every day.
There are times where you're catcalled, you're treated as a sexual object, simply doing my job, and people will just attack you for just being a woman. I don't expect to be treated like a man because I'm not a man, but I also expect to be treated fairly.
These are lessons Majera learned from the very beginning. Majera grew up in Barrington, a northwest suburb of Chicago. She attended Barrington High School and received a Division I gymnastics scholarship to the University of Alaska Anchorage, where she competed for 4 years. Majera was a journalism major and got her first news internship, but she quickly learned her heart was in the sports department.
I was always sneaking off into the sports department to watch what game was going on, to just talk sports with the guys. And that's when my news director noticed how well I fit in that role and asked me if I would be interested in having a sports internship. And I honestly thought, would I be allowed to? Because I'm a girl. And I didn't think, honestly, I would be allowed to. I didn't ever think that I could hang with the guys. I didn't think that they would let me.
This internship led Majera into getting her first sports job in the #1 market in Alaska, where she covered everything from dog sled to snowmobile races.
We're standing at the start line of the Yukon Quest where 24 mushers and their sled dog teams begin their 1,000-mile trek to Whitehorse.
Although she enjoyed her time in Alaska, Majera wanted to move toward covering more traditional sports.
I can only cover so many dog sled races, snowmobile races, fishing tournaments. I had my own fishing show before I really wanted to cover professional sports. So I'd accepted a job in Wausau, Wisconsin as a sports director, and I was the first female sports director in that market.
Majera said she was honored to take on this job, but it did not come easy. Even in the interview process, Majera faced questions that men would not.
The news director said, "Could you please explain what a double play is for me?" And it was such a basic, easy question. I was confused because I thought it must be a trick question. And I wasn't sure what he meant by it. And so I got super flustered. And I realized he's literally judging my knowledge of sports, which is understandable. But then I in turn asked, would you ask a man this question? What a double play is in the game of baseball? And he's realized that he wouldn't.
During her time as the sports director in Wausau, Majera became the Green Bay Packers beat reporter. She made great connections with the organization and eventually decided to leave her job in Wausau to join the Packers as an in-house host. There, Majera hosted a 30-minute pregame show with Packers Hall of Famer Larry McCarron.
I'm Lauren Majera, joined by Larry McCarron. The Packers are at 9-4. To get to be part of the Packers staff was such an honor. Even though I was raised as a Bears fan, it was really cool to get to work with such a first-class organization.
Majera's position with the Packers was only a seasonal gig and left her wanting more. That is when the station she grew up watching finally had an opening for a sports reporter and anchor. This is the studio where Majera broke barriers in her career, becoming the first woman ever hired to report sports for Chicago's very own WGN News.
I was overwhelmed by the magnitude of that job, and by the grace of God, I was able to be hired, and it was such a cool opportunity to walk into because Rich King, who had been at the station, I think for like close to 35 years, was retiring, and so I stepped into his role, and they realized a female had never worked in the sports department on camera before.
During WGN's announcement of hiring Majera, she says many took to Facebook, leaving their sexist comments of disapproval.
It was like disgraceful that these people like still exist today, and that they have daughters, and that they have wives, and they're still like cutting down other women and not proud of their success.
In the era of social media, the backlash is immediately and constantly received.
People will tweet at me saying, oh, you're just a pretty face, or someone is writing scripts for you and in your ear telling you what to say.
Majera finds this insulting because she says she is the creative mind behind everything the audience sees on TV.
Not only did I write everything, but I also did all the photography. I also did all the editing. I also did the producing, did my own hair and makeup, my wardrobe, and I'm coming out and reading all the scripts that I wrote. And it's just insulting that people undermine that.
But people have been hating on women in sports since day one. This is part of the reason why it took so long for them to break into this profession in the first place. Senior instructor of journalism at DePaul University, Marla Krause, was the first female sports editor for the Chicago Tribune. She recalls her story, similar to Majera's, as the only woman in one of Chicago's sports departments.
The Tribune was the only major newspaper in the country that didn't have a woman in the sports department at the time, and it was embarrassing to them. And they had asked lots of women who worked like in other parts of the paper if they'd work in sports, and like every single woman just said, like, are you crazy? Of course not. So I don't think I would have gotten hired if I hadn't said, yes, absolutely, I'd love to work in the sports department.
Krause says Chicago sportscaster Jeannie Morris is the one who paved the way for women like her in sports.
She showed that, a woman could ask hard questions, and a woman could go, walk up to anybody and ask them whatever, needed to be asked. And she never seemed to back down or shy away.
None of this would have happened for Majera or Krause had it not been for Morris. Because of her foundation, both women were able to cover the sports and teams they loved.
It's been so surreal getting to cover the teams that I grew up watching, getting to be there for the World Series when the Cubs won it all, getting to cover the Blackhawks, the Bulls, the White Sox even, and the Bears.
Majera says she couldn't have achieved her dream of covering her favorite teams without all the supportive people around her.
And I had great people around me to remind me just to be confident in myself and don't let critics tear you down.
At the end of the day, Majera says that is what the solution comes down to: support. Women supporting other women and not tearing each other down, but building each other up. She says that is when a difference is made, and that is how we will continue to see the growth of females in the sports industry. For Good Day DePaul In Depth, I'm Jennifer Nazha.